This next segment has a lot of depth and richness to it, and is a bit lengthy, so you'll want to make sure that you are prepared to sit back, relax, and enjoy this next piece. And we're continuing with client acquisition, and we'll going to get further into evening talks and structures, guidelines, and marketing for those talks. And now that we've already covered what to sell, and that would be your offering, and of course, who to sell it to, which would be your ideal clientele, and then of course, how to sell it, the evolutionary sales process. And now we're going to get into even deeper into acquiring prospective clients to sell it to, and how to actually get them in front of you. When you're building or increasing the size of your practice, there's simply no replacement for giving evening introductions to your work. If I could leave this out, I would. Actually, maybe I wouldn't. But but there simply is no replacement for giving evening introductions to your work or talks like that. And I really mean that. Period. There's just no replacement. There's lots of reasons for that. Frankly, people want to get a sense of you often if they're going to work one-on-one with you. Secondly, it's just always more powerful to be in person than it will be, say over the phone or teleseminars. And by the way, teleseminars, I think I've already said this, but teleseminars are simply not a great way to acquire prospective clients for one-on-one work for coaching relationships, unless your teleseminar has several hundred people on it, and then it's just a numbers game. But if it's under 100, it's just not a great way to acquire clients. It's a great way to sell products, but that's a whole separate conversation. But when you're building or increasing the size of your practice, there's really no replacement for giving evening introductions to your work. Period. And in this lesson, we'll teach you how to best structure a talk to maximize 3 primary results. First, to keep your audience engaged and interested. Second, to help your audience retain more of the learning. In essence, allowing you to provide more value to them. And third, to maximize your acquisition of prospective clients. So those are our 3 tasks at hand, and that is the purpose behind this entire piece. And just imagine what it will be like once you have a structure in place that will allow you to do those three things so easily. And just imagine that. So let's handle these in reverse order. Maximizing your acquisition of prospective clients. There's really only 2 things you must do, and they take only a few moments, really 2 to 3 minutes tops, to maximize your opportunities with prospective clients in the audience. And while these are short, they're very simple, they're absolutely critical. If you can completely tank the actual outline of the evening talk, but still do these things and stumble into a few clients. So the first thing is you must pre-frame that you're going to be offering your services. You've got to say that first. In fact, I often say it even before I say who I am. How do you do this? How do you do that? Well, in the first few moments, what you do is you say who you are, or even before you say who you say these words. I'm here for 2 reasons. First, I'm here to provide solid value to you, such that if we never meet again, your life is improved or enriched for the better. And 2, I'm obviously here to also market my services. And then you hold up an interest sheet and you tell them what that means to you. Is that you'll be passing that around at the end. So what that means to you is I'll be passing this interest sheet around at the end. And by the way, that interest sheet is in the templates section of this site, so you can easily download that, modify it to your heart's content, or use it. But really, you want to just hold it up and say I'll be passing that around at the end. And after spending a few minutes at the end letting them know what is available, you pass it around. I then may actually joke that, if they don't want to hear from me, well, great. don't sign up for anything. It's really that simple. So, your name, email address, if you want an exploratory session, or if you want to, learn how to make money by referring people to me, great. And if you don't want to sign up for anything, well, just don't do that. Just don't give me your information if you don't want to hear from me. And then you let that drop to the background, and you simply provide a solid value. You simply contribute to them. My general rule is 95% value and 5% sales stuff. And the sales stuff shouldn't really feel like sales stuff. Unless you say, I'm about to, give you the hard pitch, and you just actually say that out loud. But I don't advise that, and I don't do that. But that would be one way to do it, and it would at least wouldn't jar people. But then you also, the second thing you must do, besides letting them know you're going to do that, is to then make sure you pass it around afterwards, which includes making sure you printed it out, or that you have printing facilities at the place that you're conducting your intro, all of those things. If you, for some reason, forget all of that, just say you forgot. Say, gosh, I forgot the most important thing. I was supposed to say this. One time I was actually presenting a 3-hour version of all of this material to a class of about 40 people. And I was about 15 minutes in, actually, and I had forgotten, even though I had received permission from the people who asked me to come in and talk to their class to market myself, and I told them how I would be doing it, which was just like I just explained. I actually had forgotten, right? I just forgot. So midstream, mid-sentence, I stopped and I went, oh my gosh, I forgot the most important thing I'm supposed to do. I'm here for 2 reasons. And just, did it. And then went, okay, right, where were we? And went right back to the material. What you don't want is for them to get that at the end and have it be a surprise. If it's a surprise, they'll go, well, gosh, I don't know I was going to be sold to. No matter how light it is. Well, gosh, what do they think? The reason I'm comfortable with the word obviously, and I don't, it never helps people to have them feel stupid. But to be very frank with you, this is one area in which I'm perfectly comfortable and okay with saying the word obviously. I'm obviously here to market my services. I'm not doing this out of the good of my heart. Well, I am, but it's a win-win. You get a bunch of free value. If you don't want to hear from me, great. But I'm obviously doing this to market my services, and just do that. And by the way, it's a wonderful way to, some people will say, gosh, do you want a fee? We'd like you to come and talk, and, how much do you charge? Often I'll say, I would prefer to do it for free, but I'd like to do this thing, and I tell them what it is. I'd like to market my services, and this is how I would do it. And usually they're excited that, first of all, I'm willing to talk for free, and second of all, at how clean the sales process is. So the 2 things you must do, though, is to mention it in the first 30 seconds and then pass it around afterwards. And bring a few copies, by the way, so they can meet in the middle if there's, any more than 8 people, really. You want to make sure there's multiple copies floating around. And be sure to follow up in 24 hours if interest is expressed. These things will maximize your acquisition of prospective clients. It's critical for a couple of reasons. It does 2 things. 1, as promised, it maximizes your opportunities. But 2, it's highly ethical. Honesty and transparency about the event allows people to leave if they don't like that. I've never had anyone leave when I set this context in advance, as I'm instructing you to do. I have, in fact, been complimented on the strategy by people who can't stand sales. And if you forget, someone's going to complain about being pitched at the end. And so just avoid that silliness and gain the fruits of integrating this simple technique into all of your talks. Okay. Now it's time for us to get into the meat of structuring the talks. Included in the site is an audio program on presentations. And It's over 2 hours. It's broken up into, I think, 11 or 12 different tracks, something like that. Consider these next few slides in this video a supplemental document to that audio product, or consider that audio product a necessary supplement to this video lesson. And this is going to be broad stroked, and the audio product goes into a lot more detail. So consider this a 30,000 foot view. What you are about to learn will have talks practically write themselves, and provided it is an area of your expertise, obviously. And for this, we start through the 4 learning types in the basic standard presentation format. So different aspects of information and learning interest different people. And I'm sure you have experienced this. Some people immediately understand why the information you're giving them is important. And they want to get right to learning the how. They want to know how to do it. Explain it to me fully. I immediately get the implications. Please tell me how to do it. And they want to be hands-on as quickly as possible. Others are just information junkies. Right? They will just consume and consume. They're just interested in what. And they don't want to waste any time with exercises. They want to get to the next nugget of information. They want the data, in essence. Still, others think what you're saying is all well and good, and sure, they see the importance of experiencing it, but they want to know why they should care. They may be people saying, yeah, so what? Or big deal, or like that. And there's another group that is only really inspired through vision, what it will make possible in their lives. And these will be the more, the less practical people, the more visionary or abstract people. They might even be a little spacey. And once they see the grand vision that it makes possible, they'll be sure to remember all of it. And so none of these are any better or any worse. None of them are, some of them have different benefits and drawbacks. Some of them are more effective or less effective than in different contexts, but none of them fundamentally, objectively, are any better or worse or more effective or less effective than others. They're just different styles. And they're different modes of learning. However, they're all learning styles you want to incorporate into your presentations. And as a great presenter, you'll want to cycle through them all. And this allows you to keep the whole audience engaged. And again, it gives you a structure that has presentations practically write themselves. So let's talk about that presentation structure. Presentation structure is using those 4 learning styles summarized this way. The what, or what you're talking about, why it's important, how to do it, or steps or aspects, a process. It could be an exercise, an experiential exercise. And what if? And really, that is simply the structure of your outline. What, why, how, and what if. And you just fill out those items. What are you talking about? Why is it important? How do they do it? Or, how do they improve it? Or how do they solve it? Or how do they stop it? Or how do they, achieve it? And what if? What would it make possible? Just imagine. And so the presentation falls right in line. You lay out what you're going to talk about. You say the topic or subject. You speak to why it is important and perhaps what problem it solves or how it can help people. And then you include the how, steps or items or lists or structures, or an experiential exercise, a demonstration, or a game. And then you paint a vision of possibility and you speak directly into that. So I'm going to demonstrate the material in the context of the material itself. So what we're talking about is how to design a presentation format. And why it's important to you is really 2 reasons. One is it'll keep the audience engaged, but even more importantly, it'll have you easily write any presentation you like that will keep the audience engaged and will be easy for you to create. And how you do that is you follow this simple structure. You do it by fleshing out the what, the why, the how, and the what if. And what it makes possible. Just imagine how much more easily your presentation will go, how much more easily your business will grow, and how much more at ease you'll be when you're able to simply follow this structure. Just imagine that. You'll be more at ease, you'll be more confident, you'll acquire more clients, and ultimately you'll feel more fulfilled by being able to live your purpose more effectively and more easily. And that's what it makes possible. And so that is, of course, the material being used, using the material. So there's an example. Now, variations, here's some additional useful preframes. You want to tell them that their questions will drive the evening. Now, only use this if you are incredibly well versed in your material and you can't get lost, or if you have a PowerPoint presentation. You want to talk about logistics. You don't want somebody asking where the bathroom is, halfway through. And you want to let them know about time, how long you're going to go the evening, etc. And I really wouldn't get into much more than that, by the way. This is an evening introduction, not a weekend workshop. So, a whole long intro with agreements or, setting a bunch of frames, it's just not very useful. You really only want 3 or 4 pre-frames, and the primary one, of course, is that you're there for 2 reasons: to provide value as well as market your service. There's something else that's useful for you. Useful debrief questions. I like to, after we talk about the how, so that could be explaining steps, or it could also be, after an exercise, you ask them any comments or questions or observations, reactions. What did you notice? What did you learn? And I usually say them in that order, and it sort of covers the bases. And I say them immediately after we regroup from the exercise. You can mix up the order, of course. Feel free to. Although there are obviously some orders that don't work. But for instance, you could start with a fun experiential exercise. And that would be the how. And you could use that for lots of ways, either as an icebreaker or to, an intentionally designed exercise to feed right into your first what, the first point you want to cover in the talk. It would certainly shake things up in a positive way. Now, this would not work so well for lists or items or teaching some skill or communication tool. There are some instances in which, communication, it could be used for that. But, that's typically at a fairly advanced level of presentation design, and we're not covering that here. But it could be done in some circumstances with positive results. However, my advice to you is to stick to the standard format, at least until you have it down pat. And, as we like to say, please learn the rules first, so that you can then break them with some elegance and creativity. Once it's second nature, feel free to experiment. But for now, what, why, how, and what if? One more important note. If you're presenting in someone else's house, and house could be literal or metaphoric, actually. Could be someone else's space, it could be a business that's brought you in. But if you're presenting in someone's house, be sure you are respectful of them and their clientele, especially if it's another business. You want to make sure any agreements are handled in advance around how you can market. Now, this might be somebody who's asked you to do a teleseminar or asked you to come in and make a presentation. And you just want to make sure that you want to let them know in advance how you typically market yourself and make sure that's cleared with them first. What I mean by this is be sure to have the conversation with them about how you conduct your business. And be sure you have permission to do so. This is one of those areas where, sometimes I'm sure you've all heard it, sometimes it's better to apologize than ask permission. This is not one of those cases. If you apply that principle here, you might end up, destroying or harming for some period of time a business relationship when you could simply avoid it by having a brief conversation in advance. So, locations, some tips on locations. You have several options for locations. You could do it in someone's home, depending on the home. It could be a former or current client or a friend who has a home suitable for such gatherings. It could be a conference room, or it could be your own office, or you can rent one hourly from a local virtual office service or a shared office service. You can also use something like a yoga studio or martial arts dojo, something like that. You do want to make sure you have a few things in place, and you want to make sure it's suitable. And of course, your own home, if it's suitable for such occasions. Now, what does suitable mean? It's probably a very, very salient question right now. It should be either semi-modern or at least professional looking and feeling. And you want them to have a minimum of thoughts in the way between you and your material. Basically, you don't want the house to be distracting. So, it needs to be clean. It should be relatively sparsely furnished, actually. It should be, a minimum of distractions or obstacles. It should feel fairly sterile, to be honest, because you don't want it to distract. And frankly, you don't want people incredibly comfortable. You want them to be alert and learning and moving. You want them to be just comfortable enough. You don't want them to be uncomfortable, but you want them to be alert. So the reason for this is they have enough to overcome already. If they are stumbling and on a stack of books in the hallway or something like that, it's just not going to go well. It's also good to have it near public transportation. Not absolutely critical, but it's a good idea. You want to remove any possible obstacles for them in terms of getting there and having objections to coming. Now, again, not necessary. It's more necessary you have effective marketing copy, which brings us right to getting the word out. So this will be the last piece we're going to cover today. This will be the how to get the word out. This is essentially tagging onto our email marketing piece last week, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Go ahead and refresh yourself, take a break. We just plowed through a lot of information. I was talking pretty fast. You may want to listen to that one a second time. And I look forward to the next video.